Caught in a web of coincidences, my first love and I magnetically drew to each other throughout middle school. I couldn't escape the sensation of longing he gave me, and I remember thinking if only he knew how I felt. Years later, I'm still haunted by what could have been. Would he ever return? This is it, this is the story. Untold and raw, my honest feelings about this man and everything that happened. I will not reveal too many details just in case by some crazy chance he finds this and connects it to me. If you do, please come back or at least admit to me that you liked me too. I first saw my first love on a social media post. I did not know who he was at the time. I would later find out after meeting him that I had a video I had taken a few years before with him in the background. I did not know who he was and the video was about something completely different, so off the bat I thought our connection was random and selective. I am telling you, throughout our entire story we had so many coincidences, moments that should be fake and out of movies. Things that should not have happened but did. It was like gravity, magnets pulling us back to each other with each push. When I officially met him, I did not recognize him at first. It was middle school and we had 3 classes together back to back. I started paying attention to him in one of our classes. He sat behind me. Every day he would ask for a piece of paper and I obliged. Honestly, I was a pushover, and besides, it did not hurt to give him what he asked for. That was the catalyst, the jolt in the strings that started it all. Paper after paper, our relationship formed. Suddenly, he was everywhere in the halls, around the corner, sitting in a class that I happened to pass by where he was positioned to make eye contact with me just right. I am telling you, he was everywhere. I saw him too much for it to be a coincidence, and I do not think it was him doing it purposefully that year, not yet. It was just the universe doing its work, perhaps God himself. I wonder if he thought it was strange how much we saw each other. In one of our other classes together, I sat in a pretty uncomfortable seat. I did not know anyone at the time, so I picked randomly. A few days later, I saw this one girl I knew from another class. The seat next to her was wide open, so I took a chance. I got up, gripped the strap of my backpack, and walked over to that spot. This is where I would remain for the rest of the year, and she turned out to be my best friend. This is hard to talk about. Coincidentally, I unknowingly took my first love's spot. He did not say anything though, he opted to just sit in front of us. Another event that finalized our current situation. Now in 2 classes I interacted with him, suddenly he was always around me in our 3rd class. 3 classes of talking with him, laughing with him, and bickering that I could not get enough of. He was the kind of guy everyone liked to be around, and I assumed I would not be talking with him much. He was just another popular guy, one who would ignore me, but he did not. I am telling you, it was so unnaturally pushed in a good way. At that time, it was nice knowing that my classes would not be boring with him in them. He was a source of entertainment, something nice to look at. Soon enough, a friendship formed, and I wanted him to like me. He teased me a lot, not bullying, it was playful banter. Something silly, like I wrote too loudly, or me getting on to him for drawing a very embarrassing picture of himself on my worksheet that I had to turn in, I might add. He insisted that I keep it as it was, not to erase it, so I did not. The first class we had together was genuinely one of the best, and he made it that way. Our teacher assigned us to groups, ones that were permanent for the entire year, and he was in mine. I was excited mainly because he was funny and smart. I was scared of embarrassing myself, accidentally slipping up or something. Even despite the issues we faced in that class, he never made me feel bad, never stupid. Our group was foolish and hilarious, and I do not thank God enough for that privilege. I will never forget that day where his friend claimed he needed a girlfriend and they both looked over at me. "You should date him," said one. "You definitely should," he said. I laughed and brushed them off, not without hearing a million reasons from both of them on why he was such a catch. I already knew that, just silly jokes from teenage boys, the usual. At this point in our story, I had a crush on him. Something small, I had them before. He was cute and funny, could you blame me? One day it changed, though too quickly for my liking. A crush turned into a like, a strong like, a terrifying like. This day is engraved in my head, I remember it so vividly. It was the morning of first period, I was standing in class, talking with my friend. My backpack strap dug into my right shoulder, my hand was loosely latched around it. There was chatter in the background and everything was normal. I was standing by the entrance of the door. One second I was standing, the next I was falling. I looked outside and there he was. He was walking toward me, a friend on each side. He was just laughing and talking, nothing was significantly different about him, but suddenly everything changed. The loud voices in the classroom faded and my peripheral vision blurred. All I saw in that moment was him. I did not see anything or anyone else, and my hearing blurred. Time slowed as he walked, slow and steady as I analyzed him. Was he always so beautiful, handsome and bright? Was his smile always this captivating, his aura this prominent? Something changed in the way I saw him. In that moment he was perfect to me. My breath hitched and I have not been able to hear clearly since. I will never forget it, I cannot. Every joke he made, every laugh that spilled from my lips, he watched. It was like he was making sure I was listening, finding him absolutely hilarious. It's like he wanted approval or something. Another random thing he did was purposely say my name wrong in a funny way that made me laugh. My name was kind of hard to pronounce, so he definitely indulged in that fantasy. Weirdly enough, it made me love my name even more. Now here is the crazy part, that out-of-world experience that does not seem real. One day I was listening to music, walking and oblivious. The song played a line that called out my name and suddenly he passed by me. And guess what he did? He called out my name right as the song played the line. I was also wearing headphones, so no, he could not have heard the song. Again, another event that happened that does not even feel real. Coincidence. At that point, I was convincing myself that it was, but no way. We were growing closer by the day and now others started to notice. Random guys began asking if I liked him, even one of my close friends who was convinced he liked me. I did not see it, but I hoped for it. They claimed he was always around me, wanting to talk only to me, trying to make me laugh. They said, "You followed me everywhere." It felt too good to be true. I could not believe it. This boy was a dream. I swear he was created out of a movie made by God's will and love. I can tell he put thought into that boy. Now everyone thought he liked me, but I did not know that at the time. I had a feeling, a hope that he did. This had to be the work of the universe, uniting us over and over again. I will admit, I dropped hints, subtle things that let it be known, but only if you watched closely. I cannot recount all of our interactions. I am already paranoid posting this. Just know that coincidences cannot describe what happened between us now. It was the end of the year, the last day of the semester. I was fully prepared to soak up the last class I had with him. I would not be seeing him for a while after that. I needed to take a final exam, but unfortunately I had to leave early. I rushed to class and took that test as fast as I could. I was disappointed. I was not even going to be able to enjoy him. I finished the exam and for a solid 10 minutes I sat there staring ahead. After this I would leave and I would not see him again, and that hurt. 10 minutes of sitting there in silence as I breathed in the last remaining air I would share with him. Eventually I got up, turned in my exam and walked toward the door. I felt about 30 pairs of eyes on me, but only one mattered. Only one burned through me and I knew who it belonged to. I made it to the door, opened it and walked out. Finally, I was able to see behind me. There he was, staring dead at me. Let me just say something and I will never be able to stop talking about it. He had the most intense and striking eyes I have ever seen. Like a hawk, he lowered his gaze and studied me. But when he laughed, they shined brighter than the stars we share. Every time this man looked at me, I felt pinned down. And that is what happened. When I turned around, we made eye contact and I froze. His eyes conveyed so many things, but for some reason they looked sad. It broke me a little. It did not make leaving any easier. I smiled at him, the one I shared with him a million times, and I left. It felt like I was leaving something behind. When we returned from break, nothing was the same. Everything was especially different now. It felt like I was losing him. He acted differently in a way. The same, but his eyes held a new emotion that I could not quite put my finger on. I could not lose my source of happiness. He was that. I know that is not normal or wise, but in a way he helped me through a dark time. His popularity had its consequences and my insecurity did not help. I did not go a day without laughing and smiling. Genuinely, life could not get better. He was never rude to me, not like a traditional popular guy anyway. Our dynamic was random. I think everyone thought that. A shy introverted girl and a chatty popular kid, we definitely attracted some attention. He complimented me a lot, claiming I was smart or clever. He even laughed and assured me I was really good at drawing when he caught me doodling, which I covered with my arm and blushed furiously. Always near me, willingly and unwillingly paying attention to me. I say this and others will too. This kid always chose me. He wanted to talk to someone he needed a favor me. I feel like he depended on me for certain aspects and it was kind of an honor. I am telling you, he had others he could go to, but he did not. I was the first choice, a willing candidate. You know that theory that teachers know when their students like one another? Well, I think one of our teachers had an inkling. This day she assigned all of us new seats, and as luck would have it, she sat my first love and me next to each other. I remember being so excited I wanted to cheer, just me and him shoulder to shoulder, an excuse to have him to myself. Conveniently, we sat next to each other for the rest of the year. Some teachers rule. I feel crazy every time I say this, but please believe me. I was always near this boy, forced at this point, but not complaining. It literally felt like the universe coordinated, making every situation so that he would be near me. I saw this boy in places I should not have and talked to him in situations that were created. No longer a coincidence, fate. My friend sat near us a lot, so she and I would talk. She would ask if I had any crushes, to which I nervously said no. She asked this quite a few times, and every time he would grow quiet. Suddenly, he was so focused on his schoolwork and he was never quiet. I think at one point she even called him out on it. One day she said the one thing I was dreading. She flat out asked if he liked me. My eyes widened and my heart dropped. She had no idea I liked him, and honestly I was furious. Now I had to hear the hurtful "yo, I would never like her." I bit my lip and waited for his answer. His face turned red and he laughed. "Why does everyone keep asking that?" I paused. What did he mean everyone keeps asking? Everyone? Honestly, I was shocked because now this was confirmation that what I was seeing was not just me. He gave everyone enough signs to make them question him, signs of a crush. I did not say anything, but he looked caught. His eyes were darting, laughing nervously. This cool and collected demeanor cracked. He finally denied it with a simple "I don't." Lying? No way. She actually called him out. This entire scene unfolded before me and I had not even spoken a word. She claimed, "I have seen the way you look at her." Another shocked expression crossed my face and she continued to prod, "You treat her differently than the others." He responded, "I treat everyone like this." I will admit that was true, but perhaps I was blind too. He settled with a no and she finally let it go. I left the class feeling two things. I could not believe he rejected me and he might actually like me. Valentine's Day was approaching and that made me excited. Maybe he would make a move, maybe not. I had to have some kind of hope, though I was doubtful. I could go on and on about my first love, I already am. I just need to talk about it, spill out these feelings. Proof that it happened because my friends are tired of hearing his name. He also unwillingly had very bold friends, the kind that did not hold back when speaking their minds. Let us just say that hearing his friends say we would be cute together was nice, but not when one of them mentioned how cute our kids would be. These friends would also fill me in on information about my first love, including the classic "he likes you." It is hard to believe teenage boys, but hey, it is nice to hear. At this point, I am heavily convinced he likes me back. All these signs, people flat out telling me. And not to be delusional, you probably think I do have great intuition. That is why when Valentine's Day arrived, I was convinced something was going to happen. Something did happen that day, but not great. That day was great, I had fun, and even if nothing significant happened, it was still a better Valentine's Day than last year. However, towards the end of the day, he asked me a question. I cannot quite remember the conversation, but he asked if he had ever made me cry. Odd, I replied no because he had not. We all went home, it was midnight. I do not know why, but I did it. I cried over him. That night, I unironically broke that promise and I finally admitted to myself that I think I love him. Love is a strong word, I agree. But I do not know what else to call this feeling because I have had it for 7 years. It was all coming to an end, though I did not know it at the time. All the teasing, lingering gazes, laughs, and smiles were gone. I will not say why, but abruptly we were separated. I did not see him for a year. Ironically, that one scene in Twilight, New Moon, when Bella is waiting in that chair for months collecting dust, lol, is very accurate. I am not going to lie, that year sucked. An entire year without him. That year I admitted to myself that I loved him, not to him, obviously. The feelings did not leave, those eyes stayed burned in my mind. This is the part of the story that is the most important. I say that the beginning was me pleading my case, but these next few years were the evidence. After a year without him, no communication or interaction, it was high school. The love does not fade, he was fresh in my head. I was stuck with 0 classes with him and I could not have been more devastated. I was not even sure if he attended the same school, but I had hope. That first week of school was me searching for him in a crowd, trying to find that lit candle in a room of darkness, until I saw it flickering nearby as it passed with a breeze. I saw him. I was relieved because even if we did not have any reason for interaction, he was there. We locked eyes for a second before he was swept away by his friends. That year I expected our friendship to be over, we had officially separated. However, this is the year that I miss the most. Here is the thing, every day at school I saw him. Each corner I turned, down the hallway, below the staircase, we saw each other. No reason for interaction, yet I had never felt closer to him than during those times. Each day that passed, the more frequent his appearance became. My friend told me there was no way it was not on purpose, and she was later right. My days were now centered around seeing his face, and for that entire year I was subjected to his eyes, that look. Every day I left class, we would share a long minute of contact, just staring at each other before one of us had to leave. That was when I started to notice the effort he was putting in. He searched for me until he found me and then never looked away. I always wonder what was so significant about him, why I am so smitten and entranced. I slowly realized it was because it was just him. The dreams began to start every week, maybe 7 times a night I dreamt of him. Each dream was special, each dream he gave me what I wanted him. This boy never left my mind, even sleep could not release me from his smoldering gaze. My subconscious was running wild and those meaningful interactions we had did not help. Like he snuck into my view every day, he decided to invade my mind as well. He found his way back into my life and that entire year was confusing. Before, it felt like I was the one chasing him, but now it was him hunting me. He sought me out everywhere he could. I had no classes with the guy, yet I had never seen him as often as I did then. At this point, I wanted to move on. I was scared of this feeling, the way my heart would race when I passed him in the hallway and he stared at me, unblinking with those eyes. Each time my friend and I passed him and his group, they would all go quiet and look back at us, then at me. We did not know what to make of it each time it happened. One time I was walking behind him and his friends, one of them whispered something in his ear and I had never seen him spin around so quickly with such haste. He looked at me up and down and then, with that searing eye contact, held it. I went to class feeling conflicted. That year I also met other boys, but none of them ever stuck. I could not form a connection because it felt like I was betraying him. Betraying my heart because I did not want any of those boys. None of those relationships hurt me. What hurt me was seeing him laugh without me. At one point, I heard from the wind that a girl had a crush on him. Now I was convinced I would lose him. It turns out her crush on him was obvious to the entire school. They said she followed him around like a lost puppy. She was beautiful and everything I was not. I was ready to accept my loss when one day, I was conveniently in the same room as her and he came in. I cannot remember what he was doing there, but what I remember is that he skipped over her, and his eyes landed on me almost immediately. I stared back, a wisp of that old smile I used to give him on my lips, and now his eyes began to tell me things. They said, "I see you, only you. I know the way you feel about me, and I know you see the way I feel about you," and that was exactly the truth. Just like the first year I met him, we saw each other everywhere, even in places he should not have been, conveniently just appearing. And now his presence seemed to elude me. I was being chased, watched. I had a few classes with his friends, and they began watching me like a hawk, analyzing each pass I would make at a guy, each smile and look. I wonder if they would report back to him, walking with a friend. I felt a familiar pair of eyes burning into the back of my head, and I always knew who they belonged to. One time I even grew bold enough to look back, and there he was, unyielding. On Monday, my friend suddenly had something to tell me. In the pit of my stomach, I knew what it was. At this point, he knew that I liked him. I knew that only because I am so obvious. But this news was completely and utterly unexpected. I called my friend and she delivered the news. She had a friend that was in the same sport as him, and her friend brought up my name. There we learned that my first love did in fact like me. I plunged into my bed and wept with sadness. Because right after my friend told me the news, she then added that a relationship was not exactly what he wanted at the time. How do you think it felt to finally hear those words, "I like you," only to be shut down immediately? I thought it was a lie, that he wanted to focus on school and his sport. It turns out, even to this day, he has never had a girlfriend. After the news, I decided to respect his decision. He also did not know that I was aware of his crush on me, and that was how we kept it. None of us ever admitted to liking each other. One day I was walking to class oblivious when I turned the corner and was met with him. Except he raised his arms and scared me playfully. I yelped and looked at him in disbelief because this was the first real face-to-face interaction we had in over a year. I shook my head and laughed, scolding him. He smiled, that warm honey smile, and walked away with mischief laced in his eyes. What the hell was that? My friend and I now had an advantage, an inside man. Her friend had intel on his thoughts toward me, which were always the same things. I like her, she's cute, she's funny, and I like her. These were all things I never knew could happen, that the guy I liked felt the same way. Shortly after these events, our school held a dance. Both my friend and I attended, and it turned out he did too. The entire night he stared at me, that longing look of want, yet something clearly held him back. I am serious, the boy stared at me all night. At one point, I was turned around, facing away from him, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw him say something to his friend and subtly point a finger straight at me. They all looked at me. "Dude, he just pointed you out," said my friend. "Holy shit, he did." He then began texting me like old times, asking me questions or doing little things to make me laugh. Every time he saw me at school, he would pull that funny face that always made me laugh before and later ask if I thought it was funny. This continued on and on. We spoke and laughed, saying everything but the obvious. We ended that year with two things. He wanted to tell me something, and I suddenly had a boyfriend who was not him. This part I will keep short because it honestly does not matter. Later that same year, I started talking to a guy who later became my first boyfriend. It turns out he was a jerk, and I would be glad to be rid of him a few years later. At first, I was so convinced that I no longer loved my first love. It was all a lie, one that I kept to myself in guilt. That entire relationship, I was still in love with my first love, thinking about him and dreaming of him. I bring this up because I entered that relationship so quickly that I did not even allow myself the chance to move on, and I still have not moved on. I do not feel bad because he did some awful things to me, and all debts between us have been paid. He was not a good guy, and I say this with ease. The funny thing is, I got over my ex in a month. So how is it that the boy I had a relationship with is so easily forgettable, yet my first love, a man I have never even touched, is imprinted in my mind? My first boyfriend was my first everything but one love. While I was in that relationship, my first love and I shared one more class together. It was the beginning of sophomore year, and on the first day of classes, I found out that I had no classes with him, a bummer that I kept to myself. The next day, I ran to class in a hurry, and as I walked in, I caught sight of him. We locked eyes, and I am sure I looked thoroughly surprised. I shared one more class with him, one more time talking, one more time laughing, staring, smiling, and teasing. Even then, when we both knew that we could not do more than stare, it felt like we could not stop. He certainly did not stop, he just could not stop staring, pushing, and pursuing. The rest of my high school years were spent away now for good. After sophomore year, I never spoke to him again. My ex broke up with me, and as I went to the gas station for sympathy snacks, I spotted a car and my first love waltzed right out of it. I do not know how I feel about this. Our graduation day was the last time I saw him, and he walked across that stage. I tried to ignore that pang in my heart. He looked all grown up, no longer the boy I fell for at 13, but now the man I loved several years later. I knew after high school I would not see him again. Now I am here writing this because I keep wondering about the what-ifs. Does it ever stop? Because right now, after all of this, reliving our story every waking minute of my life, I do not think I will make it. I cannot live without it. Him. The thought kills me, puts me into a state of devastation I never knew existed. I cannot stay like this. I cannot risk getting married and not having it be him. I will not get into another relationship, not until I am over him or if it is with him. Some sick part of me feels like it will happen, that in the future we will bump into each other and be reunited. I just need the confirmation from God to tell me that he will be mine with time, that I can live with being bitten by the love bug after a fresh dream of him. I do not think I can physically live a life without him now. A part of me has been missing for a long time and it has been with him. I just needed to get this story out somewhere. I needed proof that it was real. I apologize if this seems excessive, and if you share your opinions or any comments, I would appreciate it. I felt like I needed to get this weight off my shoulders. Story 2. Dumped by a 37M after a whirlwind romance, I was left in shock when he claimed, "I don't think I want to do this anymore." Despite past intimacy and promises, I learned he started dating another woman just months later. How do I move on from this heartbreak? Note ages as of today, English is not my first language. Summary, I went through what I believe was an avoidant discard or breakup, and it has been extremely difficult to navigate this. I feel it is taking me a considerable amount of time, and I would appreciate advice, feedback, or recommendations on how to handle the situation. Do you have any tips on how to let go and move on in a healthy way? Here is the full story and background. In 2023, I then 30 years old female was starting a postgraduate program and making some changes in my life, including dating. Therefore, I decided to open Tinder to meet people, go on dates, and engage in social activities with a not attached to the outcome mentality. During this process, I met a man, then 36 years old male, who asked me on a date and I agreed. We matched in November 2023 and had our first date in December. It was a dinner and it went okay. He did not make any moves, paid the bill, and everything was fine. Honestly, I found him somewhat boring and did not feel a significant spark, but with a healthy mindset, I did not think it felt wrong either. Additionally, I was not particularly attracted to the fact that he was bald, but even with my not attached to the outcome mentality, I was seeking genuine connections and wanted to meet people profoundly. We continued to chat and talk, staying in touch almost daily with memes, videos, reels, and other content. We discovered we had a lot in common. Fast forward to 2024, he invited me out on another date in January, a month later. This time it was something simple, lunch and conversation. He did not make any moves on my part either, which I considered respectful and made me feel more at ease with him. We had been conversing frequently during the previous month, yet we still had plenty to discuss and our conversation was great. During this date, we went deep into topics such as mindset, family history, and even societal views, where we discovered we were quite compatible. Despite not feeling an immense spark, I began to genuinely like him, so I opened up more and got into the right mood. Our daily conversations continued through chats, calls, and video calls, and I started to feel more confident being an introvert and made more jokes and other lighthearted comments. However, the tone of our conversations shifted, and they became sexual. Before engaging in those discussions, I expressed my nervousness and uncertainty about taking that direction because I liked him. He reciprocated by saying he liked me too, so I agreed to that tone, which was interspersed with our usual conversations, and he appeared to be consistent, not only focusing on sexual topics. This was reassuring because it made me feel safe and not used. I want to note that we shared spicy texts and pictures, but we had not kissed on our previous dates or engaged in any physical affection. Then came our third date. We met in mid-February, about a month after our previous date and approximately 2 weeks after our conversations had intensified. And while the date began calmly as we had lunch, we ended up at a hotel and engaged in sexual activity. The timing was unusual, I know, but to make matters worse, I had a family emergency. My grandmother fell down the stairs, and I received that news while I was with him, which forced me to leave in a hurry. Obviously, he did not take this well. I called the next day to apologize and explain, and at first he accepted my apology but seemed to act strangely, which I thought was understandable. Nonetheless, he did not cut off communication. We continued talking in the days that followed, with chats and video calls as usual, and he mentioned that he was going on a trip with friends for a few days. I bid him farewell. When he returned, this was 10 days after we had been intimate. He called me, yes, via phone, and told me he did not want to keep seeing me and that he was officially starting to date another girl with whom he felt he had more chemistry. However, he wanted us to remain friends. I was in shock, and although I could understand the underlying reasons for his decision, doing it over the phone felt rude, cowardly, and horrible. I do not have a high body count, nor do I engage in one-night stands, so I was genuinely taken aback. Yes, I knew he was talking to someone else, but I believed he was sure that we were not at a similar stage before we became intimate. So here I was, surprised and in pain. I had to overcome it, and eventually I did. Of course, we started talking less and less. He was the one sharing memes occasionally, but I was not as responsive. Then in May, 2 months later, he reached back out trying to initiate conversation, so I asked him what was going on. He replied that he had made a mistake and regretted his decision. He mentioned that he had broken up with the other girl and wondered if we could try again. I was taken aback thinking, are you aware that you effectively dumped me over the phone 10 days after being intimate? Still, he seemed remorseful. So I decided to allow him to try again and see what happened. During this time, he made some comments that made me uncomfortable, and I always communicated how I felt. He intended them as compliments, but they just did not sit right with me. For example, he compared my lingerie to that of the other girl, stating that mine was prettier and that I looked better. I had to point this out once or twice, and he stopped, seemingly taking my feedback seriously. Then he started to gain momentum and revive the frequency of our communications since May. However, in August, I made a comment about us being friends, which bothered him greatly. I stated that we were just cool friends, but he insisted that it was not just about sex. He wanted romance with me. At that point, we had not engaged in sexual activity since then, but some comments about it arose in our conversations. I informed him that he could try and the door was open, so he began to show more interest, asking me out on dates again and resuming daily contact and conversations. I slowly leaned back in again. At the end of August was his birthday. He turned 37. He invited me to his apartment and we had sex again. This time around, he did not disappear and exhibited more intention, continuing to chat with me daily, asking me on dates and wanting to spend time together. Everything felt great. He even mentioned that I had everything he wanted and was looking for in a partner. We went on cooking dates together, and since he was moving, I assisted him by giving my input on furniture and other items. He wanted my opinion. I was not overly involved, but for instance, he would show me the sofa he wanted to buy and ask for my opinion, which I gladly provided. By October, the security guards at his apartment recognized me and we were spending a lot of time together. Meanwhile, my postgraduate classes were winding down. He suggested taking a trip together. He wanted us to go to the beach, and I was certain he would ask me to be his girlfriend officially as we were already acting like a couple. Hence, I agreed. The trip took place during the first week of November, and while it was not terrible nor completely good, it was noteworthy to mention that November marked 1 year since we met. He told me he did think about asking me to be his girlfriend, but ultimately he decided against it, saying he was unsure. Throughout the trip, I was not feeling connected, and although we were not arguing, we felt distant. I genuinely believed we had some issues to address more deeply before making our relationship official, particularly the time I was friend-zoned and how it occurred. I genuinely thought I had already forgiven him, but it was one of the reasons he stated he was uncertain. He seemed to feel uncomfortable that I continued to go on dates while being friend-zoned and expressed insecurity about a specific man he had seen me with, even though I was no longer hanging out with him. During one of our conversations on the trip, he mentioned turning down opportunities with other women because he was with me. At the same time, I had not been actively dating or spending time with other men. Additionally, his family was also visiting our destination, so I met his mother. Furthermore, during this trip, we both said "I love you," which I consider a positive aspect. Amid all this, he initiated a before 40s plan that encompassed travel, education, and various financial decisions. He appeared stressed and hesitant regarding several aspects of these plans. Upon our return, we were still not officially a couple, but it felt almost like we were. Nonetheless, I recognized that I genuinely liked this man. I felt something formidable love for him and wanted to be with him. So I decided to stick with it. However, I did not want our entire relationship to hinge on his terms alone, so I made a proposal. Since we were already not seeing anyone else, why not date exclusively with greater intention? I wanted to avoid making our relationship official yet, but aimed for more regular in-person meetings, sharing time together, and having those conversations that might be uncomfortable. Historically, our time together involved frequent phone and video calls, with in-person meetings every 2 or 3 weeks. Therefore, I suggested we meet once a week to spend time together and build our connection. He agreed, and we commenced this new arrangement. Although my classes ended in October, the graduation ceremony was set for December, a significant day for me. I was excited and felt accomplished. After all, I was graduating and feeling successful. My graduation occurred on December 10, and on that day I only received a generic text from him in the morning. Consequently, I called him at the end of the day and mentioned that I sensed something was off. I had felt this since the last time we met in person on December 5 but had not brought it up then. And although I mentioned it that day, he deflected, attributing his behavior to his goals, work, and stress. Now here's the unexpected twist. I called again the next morning, December 11, to apologize. I felt my previous comment was poorly delivered and assertive, but he told me, "No, you are correct. I don't think I want to continue this anymore." I cannot adequately express how this felt pure shock. However, I replied, "Not this time. You cannot do this over the phone again. Let's meet and talk and please clarify what is truly going on." He agreed and we met that night. During our conversation, he uttered a series of contradictory statements. I don't want to lose you, I love you, you have everything I want in a relationship. You look beautiful and being in front of you makes me not want to leave. Your attention to detail with me is incredible and brings me to my knees, along with I'm unsure, I might be afraid of commitment. I'm uncomfortable with our weekly meetings. Perhaps I fell for you because I'm lonely. I want to focus on my goals. Maybe I'm overly egotistical. I might be immature. I don't want to become ill again. He suffers from irritable bowel syndrome. I sat there in complete confusion. It was late, so we decided to calm down a bit. I was crying heavily, and he was not having a good time either and continued talking later. I met with him again a few days later on December 14, and things were heading downhill. I only realized many of these points later. He requested that I give him time, stating he felt overwhelmed and wanted to ensure he was not making an impulsive or emotional decision, as several things were occurring in his life. He asked for time until February, and I agreed with specific conditions in mind, the most crucial being honesty, ensuring we would communicate and tackle the rough and uncomfortable conversations, and that we would not date or entertain anyone else during that period. He agreed, but I must also mention new factors that were discussed during that conversation. He reiterated, I'm afraid of commitment. I'm pessimistic because of my relationship with my mom and how I was raised, alongside remarks like, you're gaining weight. At the end of my classes, I was not consistently working out. The demands of classes and work commitments were overwhelming and I was stressed. Your family has health issues and a history of obesity. I don't like your friends, though he hadn't met any. You have unrealistic expectations. I don't want to hurt you. I can't do this to you. I can't waste your time. I might be emotionally unavailable, and the kicker. It was easier and more certain to ask the other girl, the one he friend-zoned me for, to be my girlfriend. Even though it was a failure with her, I felt more certain about her and had more chemistry. Let's keep in mind that he had to go on a trip with friends back in February to contemplate with whom he should proceed. He admitted that the fact I had to rush out on our date, the third date, during which we were intimate, served as a decisive factor against pursuing things with me at that time. Now I acknowledge this was my mistake and in poor judgment. I agreed to give him the time he requested. You might be curious about the outcome, but I had a miserable holiday season and Christmas. He committed to text me on both Christmas and New Year, and he did. Since I was preparing and attempting with hopes that on our return, we would be able to resolve our issues and move toward a healthy relationship. During this time, I learned about attachment styles and took notes on what appeared to be the core issue so we could address it. I explored how to engage in discussions with avoidant individuals. All evidence pointed to him having a fearful avoidant attachment style. For example, he mentioned that his father left when he was young to live with another woman. Although he met certain financial obligations, he was emotionally absent, and his mother appeared chilly and distant, contributing to his fear of commitment and so forth. He once remarked something along the lines of, look at me, a 37-year-old man without a relationship. I don't want to be like my father. As I did not have a good experience, I reached out to him on January 13 of this year, expressing that I believed it was time for us to reconnect and have those necessary conversations and that I would no longer wait until February. He responded that he had already made a decision. Again, I felt compelled to say, no, come on. We agreed on this time to calm down, to converse, not to arrive at unilateral decisions. However, I recognized it was my bad and there was nothing I could do. He disclosed that he was afraid of hurting me and offered his usual choice for selecting a partner. I just don't feel chemistry anymore. Yet, he suggested again that we stay friends. I had to decline. I told him that at least in the short term it would not be feasible. I mentioned that this situation would not benefit either of us. He seemed numb, almost disconnected from his emotions. Regardless, I had to accept the situation and I perceived this as a breakup, leading me to reflect on it. Recently, I discovered that by March 9, he was already dating another woman, having attended a friend's baby shower with her. This is the same man who had told me less than 2 months earlier that he was emotionally unavailable. I know you never truly know what occurs behind closed doors, yet this does not make sense to me. Even though I approach this with no animosity, I find it interesting that he expressed a diminishing attraction toward me because I had been gaining weight, while the new girl he is dating is also overweight. She is cute, don't get me wrong, but still she is overweight. Since the official breakup in January, I have embarked on a significant healing journey. I have gained insights into how attachment styles function, and before one might label me as anxiously attached, my therapist explained that even individuals with a secure attachment style, which I once possessed, can exhibit anxious behaviors in relationships with avoidant partners. My therapist has been instrumental in guiding me through each stage and phase of my recovery. Similarly, I successfully confirmed his attachment style, and she encouraged me to compare our profiles. This might sound amusing. I utilized ChatGPT to compare our profiles across various domains. Differences in professional backgrounds, education, family dynamics, and styles, etc. Despite striving for neutrality and presenting the full truth, ChatGPT ultimately conveyed that I was undervaluing myself and that he was not an appropriate match for me. Despite being aware of all this and recognizing what has transpired while taking responsibility and accountability for my decisions, and understanding he was not the man for me, I do not feel okay. A part of me is still waiting for him to reach out and come to terms with what he has done. And it hurts. I feel sad and I am angry with myself. So how do I let go and move on?